And welcome back to the Nutrimedical Report. We have Clay Crossan. Clay, we're deep into spring now. It's past the March 21st date, and here in Southern California it's getting warmer. Although the weather's kind of edgy, we're having a mixture of seasons. I'm monitoring my radiation levels on a radiation detector, and luckily here in Southern California, I haven't really seen any increases. There's just in the oceans, but not here in the air. You are getting blasted if you're in Washington State or southern British Columbia and over the mountains toward the Midwest and across to the northeast United States. Transpolar over to Eastern Europe as well. And, of course, there's escalators that bring the radiation from Fukushima to the southern hemisphere. And most of the radiation actually is at pretty high altitude. So if you're flying, you don't realize, especially Malaysian Airlines actually limited flights from Vancouver, Canada to Malaysia to once a month because of radiation sickness over the past 3 years. So the first thing I tell people is you need to be taking our Nutri-Iodide, but you need to take free radical protection from heavy isotopes such as Kelor Max, Cell Detox, Glutathione, Nutritrel, and Regenerex, because you are bioaccumulating heavy radiotoxins and you are getting free radical damage from gamma emitters and beta particle or electron emitter radioisotopes. If you think this is not happening, you also need to do DNA repair with malignant block and ellagic acid and full vitamin K2, which stimulate repair of your DNA, because you're under constant damage. The problem is when you exceed the capacity of your body to heal, that's when you're going to get into real trouble. So, Clay, tell us about some of these nutraceuticals, cell detox, glutathione, etc.
Sure. Well, the cell detox glutathione, that's a reduced form of glutathione. It's acetylized so that your body can actually absorb it. Before this was discovered and put into production, the gold standard for glutathione therapy was to do it intravenously, and I think that you had mentioned that in your clinic in Colorado you guys had done IV glutathione therapy. Is that correct?
Yes, we were doing IV glutathione, and this acetyl form is more powerful and lasts longer. That was when we were doing 3-atmosphere 100% oxygen, or hyperbaric oxygen chambers at our facility where I was a consultant. I didn't treat at the clinic. I see people that were going to the clinic, and we were able to reverse a lot of different illnesses from retinitis pigmentosa to post-traumatic brain injury to what we call chemo, radionecrosis of bone, chronic serious infections, peripheral neuropathy, congestive heart failure, where basically it's a mitochondriopathy. People, you have to understand you need free radicals, but when you give 100% oxygen, you're going to generate more. When you take cell detox glutathione, it literally resurrects your tissues in your brain from oxidative stress. It's really important. Regenerex stimulates the genes that turn on to protect your cells, and Nutritrel, the only long-acting alpha-lipoic acid, recycles your fat and water-soluble antioxidant enzyme pathways. So fill us in some of the details of these as to why they're so powerful and unique.
Well, the cell detox glutathione, like you'd mentioned before, is the acetylized form, so it is a body-ready form of glutathione. But before, there's many different preparations that were oral, and you'd take it, but they really didn't show to be effective in the cell at increasing glutathione or in the plasma. And studies have shown that this acetylized form in the cell detox glutathione actually gets in the cell and is as effective as IV therapy. Where before you'd have to go in and get a bag of intravenous glutathione dripped in it. It costs between $100 to $500, depending on the grade of glutathione you're getting. You'd have to sit there for an hour and let the IV drip it in, and you'd have to get it done, 3 or 4 times a week. Well, that's really cost prohibitive.
How long do you think that the IV glutathione would stay? Once you get a bolus of it, how long do you think it stays in your bloodstream?
Only about 24 hours is what I've been told.
Nope, it's a lot less than that. Because of the half-life of the IV glutathione, it actually lasts in your tissues 45 minutes, and it's not chemically present anymore.
Oh, wow.
Whereas you get the acetylated form, the acetyl form will last 12 to 14 hours or more, because once it's acetylate, you build up a reserve in the tissues. But we have the non-acetylated form, even intravenously, your body uses it up and it's gone in 45 minutes.
Well, the acetylite form stays
people
around,
the same way with IV.
Yeah,
the same thing with ascorbic acid. How many minutes do you think ascorbic acid lasts? Maybe half hour. So if you're taking our Power C Plus along with our DNA repair nutraceuticals such as minoquinone 7 or vitamin K2, ellagic acid, and malignoblock, you have effects that are going to be lasting for many, many hours, and it's much more powerful because it has bioperine and black pepper extract to increase absorption 40%. Cervic capsule. So every patient with autoimmune disease and cancer, the first thing I tell them, we have to increase the electron density of your cytochromes, which also raises the alkaline pH of your tissue, gets the tissues out of a low redox state and makes them hyperoxic, so in other words, they're no longer in anaerobic conditions. And that's the basis for all disease. All disease has those characteristics. So whether it's autoimmune disease, infection, or cancer, they all have those conditions present when you develop disease states. So if you're trying to reverse those problems, including radiotoxins, you need to start alkalinizing your body, and you need to stimulate phase 2 detox. We have life support. We've got semethyl. We have the xenoestrogen detox to pull the xenotoxins out of your body. We have very unique nutraceuticals. That's why when I talked to someone, I just talked to a gentleman earlier today, and he says, well, I'm taking some things for my health. I said, are you taking our nutraceuticals and Nutrimeds? Well, no. I said, well, what made you presume that you knew what to take and you haven't consulted us or listened to the program? And he stopped. It's like, because people get, they get this false hubris to think somehow they have become what I call Google geniuses. They figured out what nutraceuticals they need or the ones they're going to take because it says it on the label, it's going to cure you. Well, if that was true, cut the label off and stick it on the sore body part and it'll do as much good. It's a waste of time. You need nutraceuticals that are based on what your condition is now. I had a gentleman recently visit, and I did a QRMA and an ADL and a bioplasm NLS test on him here at my facilities here in California. It's a friend of ours. And although he had the QRMA, he couldn't interpret it, or the 8DLRS. We're talking about the bioplasm NLS. You have to understand how to interpret the technology, and then what, as I say, it's an art based on science. And you can't just train somebody overnight. If I had a medical doctor with already an MD or MD PhD, it would take me 8 years to train them to learn 90% of what I do on a daily basis. And I'm still in the learning mode, learning new things every day. So what I primarily try to do in the show is teach you how to do the basics and how to learn how to learn. In other words, how to approach your own health as a biochemical ecology where you have to optimize it. And people say, well, my genes are going to make me get this and that disease. Hogwash. If you read from the right books in the library of your genetics and give the right nutrients and Nutrimedicals and the right diet and the right clean water and the right exercise, you can read from the good books and not the bad books. So this idea of deterministic, I call it the hollow woman syndrome, like our movie star. I don't even want to mention her name because it bothers me that she keeps removing organs because you get a BRCA panel test positive. It's disturbing to think that because someone gets a positive test for a cancer marker, that I must, if thy gene offend thee, cut it out, kind of thing. Like the Old Testament, if thine eye offend thee, cut it out. If thy gene offend thee, cut it out. Is a more foolish thing than I've ever heard. It's the same way as the commando-style medicine, pre-embalming, and they shouldn't call it health care. Why don't we just change it to pre-embalming care? How's that? How about that? Just like Obamacare. How about abomination care? How's that? And unfortunately, doctors don't want to raise questions because you raise questions like me, you're permanently and continuously persecuted for finding new answers to questions they don't want you to ask. And so when I tell people I can prove this with imaging studies, gene studies, organic acids, gene markers, metabolites, imaging studies, nonlinear technology like the QRMA or the 8DLRIS or 8DLRS 3D, they say, well, how come my doctor doesn't know it? Your doctor is untrained. Your doctor is a GP, generally pathetic, unfortunately. And if they call me, I will train them free. If they present an issue, a problem, I will train them on any issue, anytime, any specialty, no problem, any country, on my dime, but they have to call me. I'm not going to call them. They have to call me, and I'll train them. Come back, and if you think that I'm developing an even stronger edge than I have in the past, in previous years, people out there, you betcha. And I'm a servant, I'm a sheepdog for God, I call it. I'm a raised up 10th level maggot covered by the blood, and I'm on fire. And if you aren't on fire and living a supernatural life in the spirit, not only in your medical life, your life as a housewife or a driver of cabs, You cannot know the truth of the Most High, and you cannot solve any problems. There is no problem that I will not approach and bring it before the Most High to get an answer. We have a caller who has a question on a particular issue, and as I say, every hour is open lines on any issue, but stay on the topic. This is on wellness. Where are you from, and what's your question? Go ahead. You're on the air.
Yeah, can you hear me? This is Scott from Pittsburgh.
Hi, Scott. How you doing?
Okay. I had a question for you regarding the Soma Pulse device made by Dr.
You must have got one
Dennis.
last year when we were head Soma Pulse. We're now bringing on the Micro Pulse, which is the next generation, and Dr. Bob Dennis from NASA will be interviewed on Tuesday about the latest update on the Soma Pulse. So what was your question on the Soma Pulse?
If you were to utilize a nutritional IV like a Myers cocktail or a vitamin IC and use the Soma Pulse or Micro Pulse near the area of the IV, would it create a magnetic frequency on the vitamin C or, the Myers cocktail?
Yeah, what I do actually with my vitamins, I have a little Ziploc bag of all my vitamins. I take about a few in the morning, and then I take about 90 in midday, and I take a few more in the evening. And I pulse them on a Soma Pulse. And what it does, it's a North Pole or polar magnetic Schumann resonance frequency. The structure of every living thing on Earth, including the structure of your brain and your genetics, epigenetically, is scalar frequency dependent on the Schumann resonance. Without it, you can't move the electrons to the outer orbital and have cells epigenetically signal through the cell membranes. So yes, you're right. You'll have an improvement in benefits, but you need to have a customized nutraceutical protocol, which can be customized through the QRMA and your wellness history. If you send that to me, if you get a machine and send it to me, and you buy the machine from me, I will analyze it and tell you which nutraceuticals. If you pulse your nutraceuticals, or you put the pulsed field machine, the Micro Pulse, which is the one we're going to be marketing now, or the Soma Pulse, you already have it. You have little. You can get various attachments to put it around a knee or shoulder or your chest or wherever organ, your kidneys, if you have a problem with, say, you're trying to stimulate your stem cells to regenerate kidney function. And you can use both the Soma Pulse or the Micro Pulse and Lumen Photon while you're using, but you have to have the custom nutraceuticals. If you don't have all the building blocks, when the tissue is stimulated and you have the extracellular matrix, say, from your Mountain Red Velvet, Collagen Max, Joint Performance and Tendon Mender, you can't regenerate the tissues. You have to have the building blocks. That's why one of the most important ones is Collagen Max. And taking a Myers cocktail, all it's doing is trying to replenish mineral loss that you have from taking intravenous chelation therapy. That's why it was developed. I honestly think that it's better to do oral chelation with Keeler Max over a period of many years rather than doing a blast of heavy chelation therapy either rectally or intravenously. It's much harder on your system, and you pull out trace elements that you don't test. The problem is, even when you do a packed red cell, it doesn't indicate what's in different target organs in terms of not only heavy metals and toxins, but what mineral content, because every enzyme in your body, the active site is a mineral. So the problem with the Myers cocktail is it's usually a rescue thing after IV chelation therapy, and it's a very blunt instrument. If you're trying to remineralize your body, you want to be taking your oral magnesium glycinate malate, magnesium taurate. For potassium, magnesium, you want to take magnesium potassium citrate, because if you don't have adequate magnesium levels intracellular, you cannot hold on to potassium. Your primary enzyme that regulates potassium magnesium across every cell membrane is sodium potassium ATPase, which is the primary effect of insulin in your body. Insulin's secondary effect is a GLUT4 transporter for insulin resistance, and the number and distribution of insulin receptors on your skin, skeletal and smooth muscle, and solid organs like your liver, kidneys, and brain are all dependent on the levels of cytokines that switch down the genes, so your receptor number drops. So, for example, diabetes of the brain, and I challenge any neurologist to prove this otherwise to me, and if they're stupid enough to call in and argue with me, I'll prove to them that Alzheimer's is simply diabetes of the brain, period. Now, when your brain gets diabetic, it also can reactivate ancient viruses, like you had a vaccine as the MMR vaccine, and you can have the rhesus virus that's contaminated the vaccine since the 50s reactivated. And Cornell University in New York City has proven in neuropathology that 29% of patients with Alzheimer's disease grew viruses on their brain culture in viral culture in their laboratory, and that research goes back 10 years. So I quote specific research studies, not just my opinion, And I challenge people that you need to have a thesis or a theory that pulls all of the data together, not just your own private interpretations. So Soma Pulse is very good. It's an augmenting therapy, but if you don't have a custom nutraceutical protocol, you're wasting your time. In fact, if you take nutraceuticals that are out of balance, you'll actually create a greater imbalance in your body. So if you have a zinc-copper imbalance and you take excessive amounts, for example, I often will tell people if they have solid organ regeneration, we have a new copper product, a copper ligand product, we add to taking Vitamineral Max and Minerals Plus, because your body may need extra copper along with phospholipids to have solid organ regeneration of your kidneys and your brain and your liver. If you don't have copper, the copper and phospholipids work together to rebuild any solid tissue organ. So stem cells don't work with adequate copper and zinc in ratio, but you need extra copper and you may need phospholipids like Nutrifos and Neurogen, because 75% of the cell membrane are phospholipids. And if you don't have them, you can't rebuild your tissues.
By any chance, do you know the frequency that the micropulse uses? Is it like a Schumann wave? Or?
Primary frequency is 10 hertz, and there's some side frequencies that are created as harmonic echoes. The ideal would be to have, there's a whole range of frequencies around the Schumann resonance, and there's a drift. The primary thing is when the Schumann resonance hits, if you're not in a mu metal box, which they did in animal experiments, a mu metal box will shield against the Schumann resonance of the planet. And if you go 300 or 400 miles above the Earth and you're above what's called the lithospheric, which is called the first layer, and you're now above the second layer called the tropospheric, which is the second layer of the Earth's magnetic field, you lose the Schumann resonance and your DNA cannot proper expose your genetic expression, and your genes start to get gene silencing. So you go into slow-mo. The animals in the lab experiments in the space station started to become obese. Some would actually die because they couldn't absorb, and the Kmax of enzyme activity, if you measure different tissues, starts to drop because the enzyme activity is dependent on the Schumann resonance moving electrons to the outer orbitals, so the cell membranes can turn on and off genes and activate your maximum enzyme activity. So, in other words, we are Earthlings. Without the Schumann resonance, your tissues cannot express your genetics. That's why cell phones and Wi-Fi networks and smart meters are so damn dangerous, because they actually have harmonic frequencies that are identical or jam cellular communication. And they use these weapons in Gulf War I, which is a terahertz wave, which is similar to the frequency of the machines they scan in airports. And those frequencies lock on your cells with a collimated beam and turn on chromosome 16, release of peroxisomes and lysosomes that cause cell death by liquefaction. Pretty nasty. So people need to know Schumann resonance frequencies with the Soma Pulse and Micropulse are very useful, but you have to have the right NutriMeds or it doesn't work.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Welcome back. And so, Clay, let's go over some of these NutriMeds. When we're trying to rebuild tissues, like he's talking about using the Soma Pulse say, to rebuild a knee, let's talk about Collagen Max tendon mender joint performance. I had a gentleman over the weekend, as I say, I did his ATLRIS, and of course I'm also, God gave me this gift of medical wisdom. So besides looking at his ATLRS and his QRMA, I could see he had a biceps tendonitis and rotator cuff entrapment. He also had a right hip degeneration. So if you're going to regenerate your shoulder capsule and your hip joint, your right hip joint, you better be taking the right nutraceuticals. If you're going to do that, you want to be taking Collagen Max, Mountain Red Velvet, Joint Performance and Tendon Mender. You want to be taking the trace minerals to rebuild cartilage, which is their Vitamineral Max Minerals Plus. And I like the drinks. I mean, me, breakfast and lunch are my super drink, which is Glycemic Ageless Energize, NutriComplete, and Life Support. If you just want one drink, get Life Support. And I throw in there the Omega Cod Liver Liquid, ALC 1000, and D-Ribose. And, of course, now I've been sipping on one of the new drinks we're going to bring out in the near future we're working on, which is our Energy Lights drink, which is amazing. They're nitrogen sachets. People say, how do you have so much energy? I said, because I just get out of the chamber for 40 minutes, take all these fancy NutriMeds, and I avoid the bad stuff that's going to poison me, and I drink clean filtered water. So let's talk about rebuilding joints. This gentleman was probably trying to rebuild a joint, like their knee or their shoulder. Let's talk about the NutriMeds. What's in them? Why is it so good? And why should they not waste their time listening to buy any other nutraceuticals and any other website or show other than here at Nutrimeds. Why are they wasting their time? Because, as I say, don't stick the label on and expect a result. It's about as effective. Take our Nutrimeds, and then we'll give you concrete solutions to your problems.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the supplements, you do get what you pay for within this industry. I mean, there's 50 different levels of raw materials you can buy for magnesium alone. You can get low-grade, animal-grade stuff, and some people do get that, magnesium oxides and things like that. They put those in the products, and the unsuspecting public looks at it and says, oh, good, magnesium, I need that. They take it, and they hurt their stomach, they get poisoned, they get sick. So, you need to look at the ingredients, and not many people are educated on it. That's why they should be listening to your program. You educate them on what is the best forms of these nutrients that they need to look for.
Right, and also don't assume that if you're taking them, if you haven't retested, whether it's functional medicine testing, and by the way, even if you do a PAC red cell test, it doesn't mean you don't have heavy metals in your body, because your body can sequester them, or your levels in other tissues are adequate of other trace minerals. When I do a QRMA, it's more accurate than that. And there's other functional medicine tests that will tell me if you're in the range. And I tell people I've got this gift that God's given me of medical discernment, so I combine all of the things with the proper medical and wellness history, functional medicine tests, and a QRMA, which is, I tell people, the ideal way to say, are you on track or not? Because if you take things you don't need, you'll create a greater imbalance. And if you don't take enough of the things you do need, you'll not solve the problem. And so here in America, where they take tons of supplements, there's more relative imbalances than in third world countries where they're starving. It's bizarre. And they take really inferior supplements, like the average cardiologist or internal medicine doc. When they see people with low magnesium, because they'll tell you in the ICU you need magnesium, they give magnesium oxide that's only 4% absorbed. And if you take adequate magnesium, it can cause diarrhea and cause hypermagnesemia. And magnesium is the best marker for stress in your body. So if you measured your milligrams of magnesium in a 24-hour urine, the best single marker besides oxidative DNA markers like 8-hydroxy 2'-deoxyguanosine and T-bars is your number of milligrams in your urine per day of magnesium, because it's the life mineral. It's a mineral that regulates 300 enzymes, including DNA, detox, what we call the glutathione peroxidase that protects against hydroperoxy radical, makes new DNA, protects the cells and tissues, regulates the energetics, shuts off calcium. Calcium is the spark that starts things. Magnesium is the thing that shuts that off. So there's 10,000 magnesium ions inside your cell for every calcium ion that's allowed in it, and kick back out through the ion channels. So if your doctor doesn't know this, and they want to increase and stop atrial fibrillation, heart failure, dementia, which is why we use things like Brain Mag, which is magnesium L-threonate with magnesium glycinate malate, we can actually stop the neurofibrillary S100 protein tangles in your brain if we give you Brain Mag. So I tell people, if you're depressed, if you're anxious, if you're not sleeping, a scoop each of Brain Mag and Calm Mind, and your things are really going to start smoothing right out. Addictions, food addictions, sleeping problems, depression, anxiety, and diabetic changes in the brain, which is basically Alzheimer's is diabetes of your astrocytes. When your brain cells get insulin resistant, you're turning diabetic, you're going to get demented. Period. Interesting, eh? And scary, because does your average doctor know this? Of course not. Are you kidding? The average knucklehead doctor has got a magic script pad in 4 seconds to tell you what drugs you need to take, look over his glasses, and be a medical bully to tell you if you don't show up for your next visit, he's not going to pay his car payments. That's the facts. It may sound ugly, but it's true. So let's talk about some of these things. What's in Brain Mag? What's in Calm Mind? What's in these things to protect your brain, like Cognition Plus and Brain Power? Why do we mention these things? And there's no comparison out there. People say, well, I'll second guess Dr. Digo and I'll get something cheaper elsewhere. Hogwash. We have specials all the time. I provide free consults. You can't beat the service we provide here. You cannot. I dare you, health professionals or anybody else, including naturopaths, acupuncturists, MDs, DOs, or people that even belong to the academies, to second guess and do a better service at less cost than we provide. You can't.
Well, I love the calm mind. I mean, who isn't stressed out these days? And it's got magnesium from Albion, so it's the amino acid chelated form of magnesium. You got myo-inositol, taurine, GABA, and L-theanine from suntheanine, all together mixed in a really great tasting powder. Mix it with a little bit of water. Take 1 to 2 scoops twice a day, and that's all you need to relax. And I just really love it. It's one of our best sellers.
Oh yeah, I tell people my combination favorite now, and I take, as always, because I'm like, I got a Rasputin type metabolism. As I say, if they were trying to put me down, it's going to take 10 times the dosage to put down a normal rat. I take, I'll take like 3 scoops of Calm Mind and 3 of Brain Mag just in the evening, just to calm myself, and they take 2 melatonin TR an hour before bedtime, because my brain's like flying along at 4,000 megahertz. So I'm thinking about what I'm doing the next show, what I'm writing. And people have no idea just how many consults I do all over the planet every day. I mean, I just got a pile of calls beforehand. They want their QRMA results and Grand Cayman Islands and Jamaica and South Africa and all over the place. And they want me to analyze and send it off to their relatives and tell them what to take. And what conventional care to do on top of that, conventional advanced care, because there's a lot of stupid things being done. And then I hear people out there say they're going to make lots of mini doctor bills. Read my book, which is coming up by the summer, and you're going to get the basics for everybody. With your grandmother, called Dr. You, it'll be out. It'll be about 250 pages, and they'll give you the basics. But you're not going to make copies of Dr. Deagle. That'll take 8 years, following me around constantly day and night, with me teaching you one-on-one. You're not going to do it. Okay? You're going to get the basics, and that's it. Not going to happen. So, Clay, let's go over some of these other amazing nutraceuticals. When we're looking at trying to restore people's health, one of the biggest problems we see, I hear the bumper. We'll get it when we come back. This time of year, people's allergies are going crazy, especially if they're pollutants attached to the allergen molecules or radiotoxins, making them tens of thousands to millions of times more allergenic. We've got Allergon, Allerblock. We have, of course, the nasal Silver 100. We have high-dose Power C to turn off your cytokine levels and immunoglobulins, the Immunomax and Nutrimune. When we come back, we're going to blast away all your... inform us about allergies. We have Allergon, Allerblock, Power C. We have Immunomax and Nutrimune, which is a capsulated form. If you've got allergies, you do not need to suffer. You've got a nasal spray of Silver 100, which I tell people, anybody with inhaled allergies, and Allison Med will kill off the nanobacteria, the mycoplasma, the fungi in your sinus cavities and throat your body and your gut. If you've got gut allergies and leaky gut syndrome, allergies. Let's go for it. How do people get rid of their inhaled and food allergies? If they've got really bad allergies of all kinds, which of course are getting worse because pollution's worse in big cities, and radiotoxins are attached to allergens. And of course, when you have a Santa Ana here in California, the charge of the molecule sticks to your airways, because they're changed so it actually will be the opposite charge of the nasal membranes and the sinus cavities and the bronchi, respiratory bronchioles in your small airways. So the reason why you get allergic reactions and asthma is because they're the opposite charge of the toxins and allergens in the air. So what's in Allergon and Allerblock?
The
What makes it so...
is one of my favorites because everybody makes an enzyme called diamine oxidase. We'll call it DAO. And DAO is used in the body to quench histamine in foods. And so a lot of times we'll eat foods that are high in histamine without even knowing it, things like cured meats or different types of cheeses.
Right.
Wines and beers have a lot of histamine in them. So we ingest these foods, and the histamine gets released into the body, and some of us have enough DAO to quench those histamines so we don't have a reaction, but most of us don't have enough DAO. So as a result, histamine hits the system and it starts going haywire, and so it can come up as gastric upset or diarrhea or flatulence. It can come up as itchy or watery eyes or sore throat or skin issues, because stuffy nose, headaches, all kinds of things come up. And people don't recognize that it's from the foods they're eating because it's loaded with histamine. And so I recommend giving the listeners the Allergon,
Right.
which is diamine oxidase, and they take it with each meal. And what it does is it helps to quench the histamine that's in the meal so it doesn't cause a reaction in the body. What do you have to say to that?
Yeah, basically what people are doing is they have what I call a cauldron of cytokines, including histamine. Histamine releases a thing called IL-1 beta. IL-1 beta releases IFN gamma, interleukin 6, etc., and these pro-inflammatory cytokines. And when you block histamine, you kind of disconnect the whole cycle. It's a feedback cycle. So it's important to understand it's real simple to actually turn off allergy. You got to get your body in an alkaline state, which is high-dose power C. You have to turn off and get rid of the histamine. You have to block the histamines with Aller block, and you have to heal the gut. You have to get rid of the stealth pathogens that are triggering it off, because in the nasal passages, that's why we use things like our Silver 100, Allicin Med, and Nutriodine by nasal irrigation with a sinus pulse. Allergies go away. People say, how come my allergies are gone? I say, well, firstly, you got your body alkaline. You block the histamine. You block it naturally with no toxic or dangerous antihistamines, the Aller block. You got your electron density high enough so your allergy cytokine levels drop to very low with high-dose power C. And you took immunoglobulins, which rebalance the what's called Th1 to Th2 cytokines, so your body stopped being not only allergic to external allergens, but also to cell proteins for autoimmune disease. So somebody who's very allergic is also very prone to autoimmune conditions, whether it's colitis, asthma, or chronic sinus infections, or allergic-induced brain dysfunction where chemicals your gut's producing actually cross the blood-brain barrier and affect your brain. So a lot of people say, well, when I eat this food, I get really hyper or I get really sleepy. That's because your brain is toxically affected by gut peptides and cytokines and immune complexes across the blood-brain barrier. So they shouldn't be surprised that a child gets wired when they eat certain foods or they get weird or get really depressed. It's because that's how your things work. You have a gut brain and you've got these hormones. So it makes a big difference. And of course, things are a lot worse now. We have many more allergens in the environment. We have genetically modified food that also is making genetically modified people. We have knucklehead doctors that want to push vaccines that are dangerous with heavy metal and toxic adjuvants and even put DNA in there. So now your cells and tissues are generating antigens which create, I call antigen confusion. It doesn't increase your T cell clone a population of T cells that can kill a pathogen. It increases the amount of antibodies against an antigen, which doesn't prove that you're immunized. Fact is, there's a big difference. So that's on allergy. Next thing I find is very common is heart disease. And of course, I tell people the first thing is Cardivite. Second is you need to protect your ion channels. We use gamma E+. You need super high levels of magnesium, magnesium glycinate malate, magnesium taurate. You need to take omega fatty acids, omega supreme, omega cod liver liquid, and omega supreme krill, which protects against oxidative stress in your artery walls. You need to stop free radicals and get rid of the heavy metals. Max, NutriDefense for getting rid of iron, free iron, which is the IP6 in the NutriDefense. Let's talk about a couple of these. Gamma E+, magnesium glycinate malate, Supernox to stimulate nitric oxide in your artery walls, and of course also to increase levels of tetrahydrobiopterin, which is necessary to make the nitric oxide. You want to be taking bio-LVR, Semethyl, superfolate, and power-methyl B12, because the biggest deficiency is your secondary peristaltic spasm of your blood vessels that moves the blood around your body is not your heart. Your heart does not pump the blood around your body. It's your blood vessels. In fact, even the blood returning to your heart returns because of the peristaltic activity of your inferior superior vena cava and the venules. The heart simply pumps the blood from the right ventricle over to the lungs. The heart does not suck blood back to the heart. It's pumped there by the blood vessels. And any cardiologist or doctor that disagrees with them, I can give them the nonlinear mathematical equations to prove what I'm saying is true.
Well, I really like the Gamma E+. It's a blend of all the different forms of tocopherols that are found in foods. So it's not just vitamin E as D-alpha tocopherol or DL-alpha tocopherol, which is the synthetic form that a lot of people will find in stores. This actually has gamma tocopherol, alpha tocopherol, delta tocopherol, beta tocopherol, and tocotrienol. So obviously it'd be best to get your tocopherols from the food you eat on a healthy diet, but nobody has the healthy enough diet to get all these blended tocopherols in the amounts that you get in the Gamma E+. 1 to 2 caps a day is the max dosage, very affordable. I highly recommend it as a part of your foundational nutritional support.
Right. Now, the amazing thing I find that people should understand is that this is very systematic. This is not like an airy-fairy science of, well, we think this might help. No. We can test you with functional medicine tests, which are blood, urine, and stool. We can do genetic tests and look at your polymorphisms. We can do nonlinear tests like the QRMA and ATLRIS. We can measure conventional blood work and mine more data out of that conventional blood work, whether it's a SMAC panel or other tests that your conventional doctor will look at. But they don't even know how to interpret it because they don't understand intermediate metabolism, toxicology, stealth pathogens, or plasma biophysics. They understand very little of this. What I'm teaching will be standard of care 50 years from now. And it's not, the full science is not all laid out yet, but in the works that I'm doing over the next 5 to 10 years, I will lay it all out. And it will be me and many other doctors like me that are laying down science that's going to completely change the dinosaur medicine that we have now, which does not integrate. This is not alternative medicine. Get that straight. This is molecular epigenetic medicine, which is the core of medicine. It's not the tail of medicine, it's the dog. And that's what's really important. People grasp this. They think, well, my doctor doesn't know that. If your doctor doesn't know, for example, to measure a reverse T3 level, or about thyroid resistance syndrome, or measuring your microunits of insulin and trying to get your insulin level down, your doctor is ignorant and dangerous. If your doctor thinks it's a good idea to give an HMG-CoA reductase inhibitor instead of omega cod liver liquid to lower your cholesterol, your doctor's a knucklehead and going to poison you, destroy your mitochondria, give you dementia, and shrink your brain. If you think I'm telling you lies, I'll give you the reference literature and the proof for it. So if your doctor is nervy or stupid enough to call into this program, I will do an intellectual vivisection on air, live. My patience with stupidity is gone. My love for humanity is increasing because I am a sheepdog for God. And thank you, Clay. You've done an excellent job as always. Ryan will be joining us in hour number 3. It's going to be open lines, any topic. Bring it on. I'm ready. Thanks, Clay. We will see you then.